the heart of Dixie where the eagles fly, land of the brave where the bullets don't lie. Fought for our freedom with guns by our side. Red, white, and blue, our southern pride. Raise the flag high, let freedom ring from the rolling mountains to the flatlands. We sing, no one can take our rights. Our Second Amendment will defend our land. With every bullet we stand. We were born in the USA, land of the free, with guns in our hands. We'll forever be Southern blood runs deep through our veins. We'll stand tall for America till the end of our days.
Well, hey there. I'm Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. Folks, I gotta say, sorry we didn't have a Tuesday night show. I have definitely missed y'all. I've missed doing this, missed getting to come in here and chat and have a little bit of fun. Sorry about my schedule, gotten a little bit crazy. For those of y'all who don't know, I'm working a night shift now, so kind of limiting what I can do show-wise and show prep-wise and that type of thing. But I'm going to do my best. This will be the only show this week. Next week, we're going to have a couple of shows. I know I'm aiming for one on Tuesday night next week. I'm also aiming for a really interesting Friday rant session. I've got a pretty good rant put together for Friday for a late night grab bag. That probably will be only on the Big Green Machine. Speaking of the Big Green Machine, got to give a big shout out to our wonderful friends here. We are powered tonight by the Rumble Studio, of course. Got to love our Rumble Studio because, after all, they make this so much easier. Takes a little getting used to it. I'm not really 100% with it, but hey, thank you, Rumble, for letting us have a wonderful studio to use here to put this show together and broadcast out to everybody, including those over in CommieTube world. Beyond that, this tonight's show has been a long time coming. It's been one of those things that I get asked about a lot. And as we start getting into it, you'll kind of see where I'm going with this. We're going to be digging in tonight to tasers. Now, the reason we're digging into tasers, quite honestly, well, I get a lot of questions about tasers. As a firearms instructor, as someone who teaches a lot of personal safety, personal self-defense, planning for the worst, preparing for it, I get a lot of questions about them. There are, face fact, a lot of people out there who are not quite up to the point of wanting to carry a gun. They're like, oh, I don't know if I could really deal with that. I don't know if I could really deal with that situation. I get that, and I can respect that. And I know carrying a firearm comes a lot of responsibility, training, etc. At least it damn well should. If you're not training, maybe you're a liability with that sidearm. But anyway, I get a lot of people who question, well, what about a taser? They want something less dramatic, something less powerful, something less, I don't really know if I could shoot somebody. I'm not trying to kill anybody. Okay, great. First of all, those of us who do carry, we're not necessarily trying to kill anyone. We're trying to have a tool to be able to use force against somebody who is attempting to use force against us, quite frankly, at the simplest level. From that standpoint, we want a way to be able to protect ourselves so that no one is going to use force against us. It's a self-preservation kind of thing. So we get a lot of questions about tasers and, do I recommend them? And also, I go to gun shows from time to time and I see these tasers and these wonderful things for sale. And again, I sort of want to give a little bit of information out there. Not that it's right or it's wrong. You've got to make the decision of what's right for you, what choices are right for you. I make the decision of what's right for me to carry. I can respect someone who says, I'm not up for the responsibility of a firearm, but I want something. Okay, we'll talk about that. On the other side of the coin, I want people to also have their eyes wide open when it comes to tasers. Even with firearms, there is no magic bullet. Even with firearms, there is no guaranteed automatic one-shot stop. You know, 9 millimeters, you may have to use more than one shot. 10 millimeters have been known to have to use more than one shot. 45s have had to use more than one shot. People have been shot by AR-15s and survived. I mean, you look at some of our incident reports, 2 dead, 14 wounded. Well, if 14 are wounded and survived, that one shot didn't immediately put the attacker down, in theory. So, again, we need to look at tasers. We need to look at the big scope of things. And the other thing I want to talk about tonight is a little bit as far as the law enforcement mentality about tasers. Because the other thing we hear a lot of times is, well, why didn't they just tase him? Okay. So let's see who's wandering on in here. Mary, I see you've wandered in beautiful scenic YouTube land. Hope you're having a wonderful evening today. And I see Shifty's wandered in, of course. Shifty, hope you're doing wonderfully. I know this show is a little bit later than we did do some of our shows, but I'm trying to be a little bit nicer to those folks on the West Coast. Let them come in and play and join us for some of our streams. We try to have a little bit of fun in here. So let's get into this and see what we're talking about. So when we're talking about tasers or stun guns or whatever you want to call them, they come in two forms. We can talk about the differences with them here real quickly. Oh, Minnie, good morning. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Minnie, actually, I think maybe going out working a range event with me, not this coming weekend, but next weekend. We may be doing an open house at one of the local ranges here at the Phoenix Firearms Range in Lawrence, South Carolina. They're having their 2-year anniversary open house. And we've been invited out there to come out and hang out and shoot the bull with them. So that could definitely be kind of fun. Alrighty. So what do we know about tasers? Okay. First off, there's two kinds we talk about, tasers versus stun guns. And really simply, you've got your stun guns. Now, typically stun guns, whatever flavor they are, they don't launch a probe out. They're typically contact-based weapons, meaning you have to, if this was a taser or a stun gun, you'd have to actually get the probes on the end of it. You see the little probes up there. You'd have to get those probes to make contact with the bad guy. Now, that's all well and wonderful if you wish to have a bad guy in that close proximity to you. Now, do they fail? Maybe, maybe not. The problem is you've got to get contact with them. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be on open skin, but it has to be solid enough contact to deliver the energy. Now, if you don't have solid enough contact, you're not going to deliver the energy. Now, the problem with this comes in a lot of times where somebody's got one of these devices and they're going to try to tase or they're going to try to stun gun an attacker. The only part of this stun gun, this is my phone, but the stun gun that is electrified is here. So if he or she, the attacker, can grab here, grab your arm, anything else, remove that, prevent you from making contact, guess what? You're not going to do any good with that thing. Now, depending on your arm strength, you've got to actually get it to them and hit the button to deliver a charge. Now, I see these things on for sale all over the place. I deliberately, when I made the slide, I put that little pink one with police on it. Okay, it says police. Gives you that feeling of safety. That's wonderful. That is the biggest marketing gimmick bullshit in the world, in my opinion. Find me one police officer who carries that pink stun gun. I'll wait. But people, well-meaning, either they go out and they get them for their daughters, their wives, their kids, whatever. Hey, look, we've got this stun gun, so you'll be safe, so no one will jump you. If somebody does not have the physical wherewithal to get that into deployment and touch someone with it, ain't doing no good. And if the attacker has a longer wingspan or more reach than the good guy does with that taser or that device, guess what? You never get contact with them. They grab your wrist. They've got that stun gun. Now, if they're stronger than you, they'll turn it and use it on you. I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm saying if you're going to use it, you better know how to do it. One big trick of it is, and we used to talk to people about this, you know, don't necessarily show it to them as they're coming up. Don't let them know what they have to defeat. Have it hidden somewhere. Wait till they're up close and you can get a good stun on them, and then whip it out of your pocket, your purse, your jacket, whatever, and drive stun them. Because if they know at 5 feet away that that's what they're going to have to defeat, they know you've got about a 3-inch area that can do any damage, and all they have to do is avoid that. If you've got one in one hand, their both hands go to that one hand. They control that hand. They've got you. They've got that stun gun. Now, if they can pry it out of your hand, guess what? They're now holding your hand and your stun gun. Doesn't work out real well for the home team. You don't want to, in my opinion, for what it's worth, have to be up close and personal with that. Now, bottom left corner, they got that little knuckle job there. Very small, very easy to hide, very easy to deploy. If somebody had that in a pocket and the bad guy came up, grabbed them, and they were able to hit them with that, okay, you might be able to do some good. But in general rule of thumb, you've got to be up close and personal with them. You've got to let them get way too damn close to your personal space. If they are coming at you with an edged weapon, if they're coming at you with a firearm that can project force outward, or if they're just coming at you with brute size and strength and they can out-control your arm or your hand that has that in it, you're not going to have a good day. Just saying. Now, beyond tasers. Now, tasers stun guns made the rounds in law enforcement briefly. They didn't really stay there too long for obvious reasons. Even law enforcement officers don't want to have to get too up close and personal. They want something that can project force out at a distance. What was the option? Well, they come up with tasers. Now, tasers, they can actually launch probes out 25 feet. Tasers can be, fairly effective at a distance. You can have both probes have to hit the target. If one misses, no stays. If both probes don't embed, if one hits something metal, say they're wearing a metal belt buckle or there's something on them that it bounces off of, it doesn't penetrate. Guess what? If both wires don't embed, you don't get any taser reaction. Now, many have 2 sets of probes per unit that can be fired twice, and a lot of them can be used in what they call drive stun mode or direct contact. Now, when we get into direct contact stuff, that's frequently you'll see law enforcement is trying to get a suspect in custody. They've got them, they're controlling them, but they've got their arms up underneath them and they're saying, okay, bring your arms behind your back, bring your arms behind your back. If they won't release their arms, they won't let the officer get them in cuffs, they can go ahead and drive stun them with that direct contact. But typically, inside of 7 feet, your probes don't get enough spread. Outside of 25 feet, the probes won't reach. So there's a very limited range between 7 to 25 feet they'll be effective on. And again, miss with a probe, no good. Have one not in bed, no good. And they can fail very, very readily. Now, we hear a lot about taser failures, and that's where I want to get into a little bit because, like I said, there's no magic bullet. There's no automatic, hey, we're going to fix this and it's going to work and it's going to work 10 out of 10 times. No. So I pulled some statistics. Now, law enforcement's goal is to have a device of some kind less lethal than their firearm. They want to be able to do something less dramatic in their escalation. There is no law enforcement agency that says tasers will replace the firearm. It was an added tool to their belt. They still have the firearm. Typically, it's an option for people who are not complying, but are not posing that much of a threat either. So, someone's not complying, but they don't have a weapon. If someone aims a firearm or is going towards an officer with an edged weapon, the officer's going to deploy their firearm like they always would. But what about the guy who is, you know, running down the street, screaming that the Martians are out to get him? He's buck naked and covered in his own poop. Well, they may want to use it on something like that. They may use it sometimes on individuals who are resisting, again, up close and personal. They're fighting with them. You can do a drive stun. It, again, was never designed to replace, deadly force. It was designed to give them another alternative short of exercising deadly force. Again, more behavioral patients, emotionally disturbed people, and sometimes they can be safer for the patient than other force options. The reason is, well, what are some of the other options? A smaller, emotionally disturbed person or somebody possibly intoxicated on who knows what. Well, the other choice is literally physically striking them into submission. You know, punches can do damage. Hands, fists, batons can do damage. The thought was they want something to incapacitate and stop the resistance without doing as much damage as, say, a baton would do or something like that. So it's again designed to be less forceful. Even just the mere act of two officers having to physically take someone to the ground, people can break arms, break knees, tear up ligaments, land weird on their shoulder, break a hip. I mean, they could strike their head on the ground, have a brain bleed or a concussion. So theoretically, it's easier to incapacitate them and take them into custody that way. That's great. That's a wonderful goal. It's a laudable goal. The problem is, what if a taser fails? Law enforcement has found time and time and time again, and we'll talk about it, tasers can fail. And they fail, and when they do, it's usually really bad. Give you some of the statistics here. I went through the NYPD use of force reports. The most recent one they have out is 2022. They cite a 65% success rate. Tasers. So 35% of the time they don't work. Now, 2021, they said 70% success rate. 2020, 69% success rate. Now, every one of these tells you over 30% of the time you're failing. That's problematic. That's 3 out of 10 times they will fail. Now, if they fail when you're dealing with an emotionally disturbed patient or a psych patient or somebody who's hallucinating or high on who knows what, okay, they fail, we go to something else. If they fail on someone who is aggressive, the person has a weapon, the person has a knife, something like that, and that person is coming towards the officer, and that officer deploys taser and he fails, that officer gets cut. So many agencies now will not trust a taser unless you have a backup officer there. And we'll talk about how that, shakes out. Now, when we talk about how effective they are, this is a real hard part with this study. Every law enforcement agency uses different numbers to determine taser effectiveness rate. Now, for example, we go out to pick up John Smith. He's a psych patient. He says everybody's out to get him, everybody's after him. And so he's going to, fight with law enforcement. He's going to fight with whoever gets there. They're trying to talk to him. His family has called 911, said, look, John's not taking his medication. We just had to take a kitchen knife away from him. Things are out of control in our house. Please send somebody out here. Well, despite what a lot of people would think, we can't send counselors out there at that moment. If John is violent, if John is aggressive, John needs to be subdued somehow. Unfortunately, by default, this goes to law enforcement. EMS can't deal with much of anything, so at that point, until he's calmed down, he's not an EMS issue, he's not a counselor issue. We need to get him either to an ER, psych facility, somewhere he can get some treatment, get back on his meds. That's the goal. Now, if they use, first officer uses his taser because John is out in the front yard, he's running around, he's clearly a danger to himself or others. What if he runs in the street? What if he runs on the train tracks? What if he climbs up on the roof of the house or does who knows what? So they're trying to, coordinate, corral John Smith down so he doesn't do something to hurt himself or someone else. It's kind of a laudable goal. The problem comes in, Officer 1 uses his taser. It fails. For whatever reason, John Smith stands there, probes, rips him out, laughs at him. And yes, this does happen. He uses the second shot on his taser. Fails again. His partner tries tasing him. Well, a probe misses. So now we've had 3 shots at tasing John with 0 effectiveness. Second officer uses another shot from his taser. That one works. John goes down. Well, how do we calculate this? Did we have 2 officers fire their taser and 1 successful? 50%. Did we have 4 taser deployments with 1 successful? 25%. Did we have 1 patient they tried to subdue and they were subdued? 100%. Statistically, these numbers indicate a lot of failures. We can't always say if they failed 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, but just the fact that law enforcement says 30% of the time they fail, maybe it was out of individual shots they failed 30% of the time. But a lot of times they are putting down, and again, companies who sell them say, well, they had 1 patient, they had 1 successful tasing, 100%. So you will see companies that manufacture these will report 89%, 97% success. Law enforcement isn't saying that. Now, maybe it's just NYPD. Maybe they just don't know how to use their tasers right. Maybe they're bad at tasing people. I don't know. I mean, what do y'all think? You think maybe, NYPD's got some problems. They're not training right. They're not doing right with their tasers. Maybe it's those, damn Yankee cops. Yeah. Well, let's look at some other jurisdictions. How about an American public media study? Now, this study was out in May of 2019. Out of 250 police shootings that occurred after a taser failure between 2015 and 2017. So, 250 times in that gap, police tried to tase someone, the taser failed, and deadly force had to be deployed in the form of a firearm. Now, again, it doesn't say how many were successful, but I think in a 2-year period, 250 times they had to escalate to deadly force. That says a lot. That's 125 times a year. They cited that on 106%, 106 of the cases, the suspect became more violent. Now, when they talked about more violent, they said the taser just basically ticked them off and they came after the officer aggressively, at which point deadly force was deployed. So again, you've got to look at that and say, wow, okay, so these escalated the deadly force out of this. That's problematic. Now, data from 3 cities show that the officers rated the newer models less effective than the older. Now, they went with a cross section here: New York City, LA, and Houston. And this is where things get real interesting. The company that, let's see here, trying to pull this up here. Where am I at? Here we go. I think we found me again. We find me? Hmm. I think I'm still here. There we go. Yeah, I'm still here. Sorry, I got lost there for a minute. It's been a while since I've driven this bus. Um, the interesting thing is when they talk about the newer models are less effective, in 2009, the primary maker of tasers and supplier to law enforcement reworked how their electrical energy is displaced and how it's dispersed. They reworked it in response to several lawsuits where people who had had either cardiac issues or other issues had died after being tased. So they reworked the energy in 2009. And now we're hearing from officers, yeah, a lot of these newer models don't work as good as the old ones did. So again, if you're betting your life on these devices, realize that some of the newer models, instead of improving it, well, it's safer and the company who made it's not going to get sued, but may not be quite as effective. Um, if a company was, if I was buying ammunition for a firearm and I said, yeah, I want to get from that company that says they made their bullets less lethal. No, wouldn't quite work that way. But they made it so it's less dangerous, but they're also having more failures. And these failures can be really bad. Again, we show what happens after a failure, a lot of times is shooting. LAPD rated them as 57% effective in 2015. They also cited that they had had 21 fatal shootings in the whole department in 2015, but five, or close to a quarter of them, were directly following a taser failure. 25% of the time when LAPD had to deploy deadly force, it was directly after a taser failure. So, again, I tried to pull different agencies with high volumes, high experience, that get to use them a lot, theoretically would be proficient with them, would aim them appropriately, would know the distances. And what are we seeing? Tasers fail a lot. Now, the more they fail, the more chance of it not working. Now, it's interesting to note most of these agencies have come up with a policy of somewhere along these lines. You know, as far as why they fail, you know, one of the probes misses, it fails to embed. The probes don't spread out enough. Someone's too close, probes are too close. You know, a subject fought through the pain. That happened about 13 times in one of the New York City studies. 13 times in 1 year, the subject fought through the pain. The probes fell out. Whoops. That's about fail to embed. Same thing. If they're wearing, again, heavy, bulky jacket, leather jackets, things like that, too far from the surface area of the body, probes removed by the suspect. How would you like to be betting your life on a taser and that subject just yank the probes right out of their body and laugh at you? Or the probe wires broke, became disconnected from the taser gun. Yeah, more failures, more failures. In the vast majority of law enforcement settings, if the suspect is not exhibiting any deadly force, they don't have any weapons, they don't have a knife or a baseball bat or any type of contact weapon, an officer may decide to use the taser, fine. If the suspect has a knife or other contact weapon, a lot of times the primary officer will go draw his firearm. He will have another officer draw a taser. And that's where you'll hear officers on time say, I'm going less lethal. So again, the suspect's aggressive, they're armed. Secondary officer may say, I'm going less lethal, I'm going to taser. But the primary officer will still lead with deadly force. Why? Because law enforcement is seeing so many times that these fail. And that's where, to me, you know, the marketing departments of all these wonderful organizations that want to keep selling these things to civilians, I'll say this, ladies, If you want to carry a taser, you want to protect yourself with a taser, that's great. Do you have someone else there who's covering the suspect with deadly force? So if you have a taser fail, they can escalate it. This also gets into why we hear people say, well, why don't the cops just tase so and so? If there was only one officer there and someone's waving around a kitchen knife and they're going for the cop, the officer can't wait. He can't hope. Maybe the taser works. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I get stabbed in the neck today. They're going to go to deadly. Now, if you've got multiple officers, you've got potentially a cover officer saying, okay, I'm going less lethal. They can go less lethal. If the taser fails, your primary officer will still escalate to deadly. So, yeah. Overall, like I said, I can't tell you what's right for you. I can't tell you what you need to carry this or you need to carry that, or this is the only way to do it. What I can say, and I can say with a pretty decent degree of certainty, is, folks, I wouldn't bet my life on a taser. No, not at all. Because when you're seeing the numbers of failures that these guys are seeing, it doesn't make sense. It's not a smart bet. It's not a good decision. We're sitting there and we're saying, hey, look, we're going to use this. We know it's, not as dramatic, not as aggressive, and we don't want to be aggressive. Like I said, nobody, even the most aggressive firearm carrier, I don't carry because I want to kill somebody. I carry so that way, if anybody puts me in jeopardy, I have a way to defend myself. Firearms do not require me to let somebody come up on me. They allow me to project force at a distance. Taser, 7 to 25 feet. Now, if they're, closing on that 7 feet and they're moving on you, by the time you deploy that taser, you better hope it works because you're not going to have a chance to get to something else. We've showed, the numbers. Unfortunately, there's a lot of, shall we say, the taser failure family out there. And that's a bad thing because, I would love tasers to be able to work great. I would love to be able to say, hey, look, we'll have officers using tasers all the time because that way we won't have to worry about this. But unfortunately, it's just not a good thing. So with that, if y'all have any questions, you want to see these studies, I'll definitely be happy to get them out to you. Like I said, I know it's been kind of a crazy last few weeks. Things here have been kind of nuts. Like I said, working a new shift, so that's been a big deal with me. Want to give a big shout out before we wrap up tonight to our friends over at Blackout Coffee. Folks, if you're not familiar with Blackout Coffee, they are absolutely fantastic. And they support us. We look at Blackout Coffee. We've got a 20% off coupon code for them. You can get all sorts of wonderful blends. They've got all those there supporting various 2A organizations. And beyond that, of course, they've got all their wonderful flavors: Irish cream, blueberry crumble, cinnamon French toast, Jamaican Me Crazy, Climax, still not sure exactly what that one was, and chocolate cherry, just to name a few. I know Minnie has been enjoying them. And my thing is, like I said, I love my Blackout Coffee stuff because they support the Second Amendment. They support what we believe in. They support great groups like FPC and GOA, which those are the ones who are fighting our battles in court for us and leading the fight. So I at least figure when I get caffeinated, I can go ahead and do something to support someone who supports us and supports the Second Amendment. So, yeah, big believer in Blackout Coffee. Gotta love them. See, I see Jacob has wandered in. Welcome in, sir. I understand you're lurking and surfing. Thank you for surfing on into the clubhouse tonight. Just typically kind of a lazy night tonight. I was kind of letting everyone know that my new work schedule has gotten kind of crazy, but next week we'll have 2 shows. I know we'll be doing a Tuesday night show, and then I have got a really, really fun night planned for probably going to be Friday night. I've got several incidents that we're following up on and a couple of good videos that we're going to do a Rumble exclusive, ripped out, get a little bit crazy. and vent a little bit then. That was an electrifying video, yeah. I'm glad you liked our electrifying video. I try to, again, do what I can to be not only informational, educational, and I know, yeah, it's the gun club, not the taser club, but so many people talk to me about these things. And again, I go to gun shows and I see shit like that one I showed you with that little pink thing that said police on it. And there is not a police officer in the world that would carry that. And that, it kind of bugs me, I guess, because, you know, somebody is going to buy this for a family member, for a mother, a wife, a girlfriend, that cutesy little pinky thing there. And it says police on it. It's got to be super powerful. Yeah. No, it's not. I mean, honestly, I don't see it doing a whole lot of good in a lot of situations. So, yeah, that is, tasers, in a nutshell, so to speak. Now, I do have one thing I want to show you, and I had to cut this down a little bit, had to do a little bit of clipping and editing on it, and that is because I try to be a little politically correct. I believe this takes place in the city of Philadelphia, the beautiful city of brotherly love. I don't know what jumped off and what led to this, but it was one of the best videos I've seen in a long time about how useful tasers are for self-defense and personal protection. Pretty much point blank. Sarge whips out that taser, fires that taser. No effect whatsoever. The guy was not wearing a leather jacket or bulky clothing like the taser manufacturers whenever they hear of failures. Oh, it was heavy clothing. We'll watch it again. The guy's wearing just a shirt. This happened just a few weeks ago. It's not wintertime. This setting, again, I've got where it went further on after this and where it happened. Basically, the gentleman was, resisting Sarge trying to get him under control, trying to do less lethal, got nowhere with it. Multiple officers did respond and it ended up going down 3-on-1, wrestled to the ground with the guy still fighting them. And the funny part was later on into the video, because I've got the whole thing, bystanders come up and are filming it. And one of them starts screaming, why are they hitting them like that? Why didn't they just use their taser? Well, here's why they didn't just use their taser. Watch it again. Why didn't they just use their taser? Why don't the cops tase people? Why they beat on them like that? I'll tell you. Obviously, that sergeant there clearly just wanted to beat someone up. I mean, I guess. I don't know. Folks, that's why law enforcement doesn't like their tasers. That's why they don't trust them. If you had a car that, 30% of the time you went to crank it up and drive to work, it left you sitting on the side of the road, you wouldn't trust it either. And we're seeing, again, a lot of these things, and that's actually a decent brand of taser he's using. I've slowed down the video and looked at it. That's one of the biggest national sellers. Yeah. So now, why do cops not use their tasers? Why are they always so mean? Why are they beating on that poor guy? Well, because they tried the taser. It epically failed. It didn't slow him down a bit. He actually wound the cables up and threw it back at him. There you go. There's your junk. That video, I know, has, it's gone through a lot of law enforcement hands. It's been out all over the place. It's been on Twitter. You may even be able to find it out there. Start looking around for like Philadelphia, I think it was, taser failure. Let you know a little bit about why people don't like these things. All righty. Well, folks, that's what I've got for this evening. I hope you all enjoyed it. I know it was a little bit short. Sorry about that. But I really wanted to get into this. I want to talk honestly about those things, taser units, because again, they're not bad, but they're not what they're cracked up to be a lot of times. And a lot of times, again, when you look at success rate, for me, that was an absolutely 0 for 1. Now, if when 5 officers are sitting on him, someone drive stuns him and it makes him give them the hand, well, then maybe it'll be considered as successful and we'll change that number. But yeah, if that guy was attacking the female or attacking the sergeant, that attack would have gone on absolutely unabated. If he was a bad guy coming after you, you'd probably be getting attacked. You know, that's again why we don't see a lot more taser use. All righty. Well, that's all I've got for tonight. I hope you all had a wonderful evening. I will leave you with this. Let me see what I can whip up here for you. All righty. All right. We'll just keep old Dexter on our mind as we close out for the night. Thank you much. Be safe. Bye.
In shadow.